The two biggest indicators for me to do a reteach is either after I teach a lesson and I'm looking at student work or the exit tickets and I see that there's a consistent gap. If there's something that I anticipated that the kids were gonna maybe not get, and because in math, a lot of times we're looking at that. I'm looking at, okay, these are gonna be the steps, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if everybody's missing step 3, and I know I taught step 3, then clearly something happened where they didn't get it. Either I, missed the teach, or the students didn't understand what I was teaching, and I'm gonna have to go back and reteach lesson 3, or step 3 rather, based off of, like I said, that either exit ticket data or overall testing. If we're doing a unit exam or a quiz and I see the kids making the same mistake consistently on question 5, then I need to go back to when I taught that skill, what I taught them for lesson 5, and how to then go back and fix it.
I do the student work before I give it to them. That way I can foresee what are going to be the gaps or the misconceptions. So already going into the lesson, I already know, like let's say for example, I give them a worksheet. I already know if they had trouble with questions 1, 3, and 5. When I'm going around to check their work, I'm looking specifically at questions 1, 3, and 5. And then I just keep a tally, and based on how many students miss it, then I know whether I need to do a whole group or a small group reteach. Now, if it's a whole group reteach, I'll just stop the lesson right there. The kids stop what they're doing. There's no point in continuing the worksheet or that independent work because clearly the students are not getting or mastering that TEK or that objective. So we'll just do a quick reteach on the board, and then I'll go back and I'll double check that work for that specific question. And I'll let them know, I'm looking at question number 5. So let's make sure that we're working on question 5.
I'm gonna then test them the same way I assess them for that exit ticket or for the lesson, and give them maybe not the same question, but a similar type of question that requires the same skill, that requires that step. And I'm gonna see, did I move the needle on that percentage of students that missed the step? If 50% of my students miss step 3, and then I reteach it and I have them do a question that requires them to do steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and now they've only have 20% of the students missing step 3, well then clearly we changed it, we closed some of the gap a little bit, but obviously there's still more that needs to happen there.
When Ms. Silva began her reteach for her English class, she told the students to focus on specifically the questions she asked herself. This caused students to then think only of her thinking in regards to what should have they been thinking when they did this. So for her reteaches, it's never a you do, I do. It's more of like, what questions is the teacher asking that I need to model when it's my turn to retry it or to go over that specific TEK again and try that at bat. During her reteach, Ms. Silva had the students annotating on the side of their papers the questions she asked herself. And then, as you'll notice, students' hands are going up because she asked, okay, can somebody tell me what questions did I ask myself when I was on this portion of the passage? What questions did I ask myself when I got to this question? And so students are responding with the questions that she asked, and then they are turning and talking with what was the impact of that when Ms. Silva had to answer it. Overall, as teachers, we can identify when a reteach is necessary. It's the planning and the procedures that come in after that will determine whether or not student learning increases or stays the same. The biggest way to ensure that all students are meeting the expectations of a reteach is to ensure that they have the time to collaborate with those next to you. Also, being sure to script out specifically what you're going to say, and then having students then remind you, what did you say? What did you ask? That way, you're checking for understanding while also empowering students to feel as though they too are doing the same thing the teacher is doing, which would then ensure success and growth on what they didn't maybe master the first time. One final thing to remember, a reteach does not mean a mistake on the teacher's part. It does not mean failure as a teacher. It just means that now the teacher and the students have to look at it in a different way and change their thinking in order to ensure that growth happens. Remember, we want to create a culture in our classroom that says mistakes are okay, because that means now we can see growth and learning happening daily.